Welcome to Investment and Development. We're here today on Sook Bay, on island of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. For today's program, we have here Chief Gordon Planes. He is the chief of the Sook First Nation, and also will be with us in the program Blake Barton. He is an expert and scientist on production of oysters.
Chief Gordon, we are very happy to be in this place with Don Tomas and indigenous authorities from Chichicastenango, Guatemala. Please tell us about your entrepreneur vision that you have here in this place with the production of oysters. What is in your mind?
We always think 100 years ahead. We think of food security. We think of future prosperity for our people, our nation, and we see oysters as a big part of who we are, our heritage. Bringing back the Olympic oyster is almost extinct in our territory, and growing these oysters might help us in bringing back the oysters one day that always were here. And part of this project came about in a partnership with CCAD, with our Chinese partners, and we're looking at expansion in the next few years. And right now, Blake are putting in 1/8 section, and Blake would be able to explain a little bit better about that.
Food security and entrepreneur vision is very important, and now we are listening that you have good alliance in China. How do you do to have the worldwide vision in order to take advantages for your people?
Well, for one thing, food security is going to be something of a high priority for Mother Earth. There ain't going to be enough food on this planet to feed everyone in the next 20, 30 years. This is the beginning of a long-term project, because one day we see this as a way of making sure that we can use profits from this to go towards other food security projects as well.
Mr. Blake, tell us about how the process of the production of oysters here in the bay.
Well, the oysters come originally from a hatchery, and they're grown in these lantern nets. They start out in a very small size. They come in about 2 millimeters across. These oysters here have been here for about 5 or 6 months now, and they'll stay here for around about a year until they're ready for market. Within this 9 hectares that we've put in initially, we have a long line arrangement, you can see, and the aim is to produce around 10 to 20 million part-grown oysters. And these oysters will be sent away to other farms belonging to other First Nations and groups around Vancouver Island and BC to help expand the industry. And then further to that, we aim to put in a further 60 hectares around the basin, which will be for market-size production within the nation here.
Mr. Blake, how would you see this project being done here in Sook Bay with your experience that you have been implementing in other countries around the world?
Well, it's very important because it brings in aquaculture production within Indigenous First Nations, so they are taking control of their own resources again. As an international collaboration, I work for Chinese Canadian Aboriginal Development, and we are partnered with the Sauk First Nation. So it's been a great partnership for bringing in financial inputs from Asia and combining it with knowledge of shellfish farming from Europe, along with the land and traditional knowledge of the First Nations. And so we're hoping for big things. There's a huge untapped potential for shellfish farming within BC, and on a worldwide scale, food production, we can't continue the way we are producing food right now, and shellfish production really is a way of producing protein for the world market with no feed inputs whatsoever. It's just using natural algae within the water, so it's really a win-win.
Chief Gordon Planes, how do you share the vision? How do you involve to your First Nation Sook? Because you lead the indigenous communities, and we understand that they share your vision to do economic development like these kind of programs that are excellent that we are doing here.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not me. It's the people. This is something that is not a short-term project by any means. It's going to be a long-term, 100-year visioning plan. And also, you got to consider this. It's if we look at a market like this with oysters, imagine if we had 50 First Nations doing this. We could have a market around the world. But right now, what we're doing as a way of creating wealth for our community to make sure that we always have a clean environment for future generations. And I think that's where it's all about, is making sure that we have a beautiful place to live forever.
Doing this, of course, will improve the life of your communities. Now you have an excellent technology you are sharing with these communities, but how do you do to be competitive around the world, because there are many countries that are producing this kind of stuff?
That's true. There are many countries in oyster production and shellfish production as a whole, but there aren't very many places in the world that have the environment that BC has. It has a unique situation where there's very little population density around coastal areas, other than the major cities like Vancouver and Victoria. So there are an awful lot of sheltered inlets and places with very, very good water quality where shellfish can be grown and marketed on the world market. Whereas an awful lot of other places where there is a high level of production but the quality isn't necessarily as good, and you're starting to see problems associated with that in human health and also in the health of the product itself.
Chief Planes, what has been the experiences of People's First Nation doing this project? What does people say about implementing the oysters production?
We're coming back full circle from when I was a boy. We used to always dig clams, and we always had oysters on our beaches to eat. We want to bring that back, and this is one way of doing it. So again, it's about walking the footsteps of our ancestors and bringing back what the staple foods to our communities, and be able to enhance all those other natural foods that are on our beaches and that we were going to eat ever since time immemorial.
Mr. Blake, how do you see that experiences to working together with First Nations, with the communities? How do you see this can go on the future?
Well, as Chief Gordon was saying, it is a return to normality for First Nations, really, because everywhere you look on the beaches there are shell middens, and First Nations would gather shellfish and farm them in a different way previously. So it's just using the same traditional knowledge with a slightly different technology. There's not an awful lot of training required because these people they're the saltwater people.
Chief Gordon, now we are sharing with Don Tomas Calvo, with the indigenous communities of Guatemala, that we want to get economic development. How we can take advantage of your knowledge, of your vision, the technology, to do these kind of projects in different countries around the world for the indigenous communities.
I could see us as a First Nations in Canada, in British Columbia here, working together. I could see where in time where you could work with indigenous people all over the world and be able to use those dollars and put them in the right place to make for a healthy community and healthy people. And I think that's what it's all about, is all of us working together to make a better Mother Earth.
Sounds very interesting, and we are completely sure that the indigenous communities will listen this successful case.
We're going to a commercial cut. We'll be back in a few seconds, back with our program Investment and Development, and explaining about the oysters production here on Suk Bay. We're back with our program Investment and Development and our special interview with Chief Gordon of Sauk Nation.
We were doing a tour about the oyster production, and now we see that this is the reality. But we would like to know, how was the vision, how was the experience visiting other places, and now you have this reality here, and I'm sure that you have a vision of the future with this kind of business.
Well, you know what transpired last year was the Chinese invited me to China to look at their technology with oysters. And I was quite impressed how far they are ahead in science. And in the last couple of years leading up to this project, we had to gain a lot of trust. We became good partners, and we mutually came to an agreement what is best for the Chinese and what is best for the First Nation. We might have different values, but we learned to agree on things that make sense in regards to finance, in regards to taking care of the environment, and also with this healthy community and healthy environment. So it's all, everything has to fit with us and our values, and they have to fit with our Chinese partners' values.
Production is an important issue, and we see that you are using high technology, you have good experts. But now the marketing and sales is very important to find out the right market in order to get profits. How do you do to handle business intelligence in order to send your products to different places?
Well, we can take advantage of the marketing that's already here. Oysters is a huge commodity in our area, and being shipped in North America in a place like starting off from Vancouver and Seattle, we do already have a part of that market. Now, once you expand the amount of oysters you grow, then I believe in time that market is going to expand to other countries around the globe for sales.
Chief, how oysters have nutritional benefits and helps for food security?
Well, oysters for our people have always been a main staple. It's always maintained our healthy diets, and also with oysters, if you take care of them correctly, you'll always have a healthy return. But in regards to oysters, it's not just oysters. We look at all seafoods, clams, mussels, scallops, sea cucumbers. All of those other things are going to be coming in time as well. We're going to be growing them. But the thing is we want to be able to go to our beaches and take those foods like our ancestors did. So we're doing this to one day get to there, where we can naturally be able to harvest our foods walking right to the beach, which we do today. We dig our clams, we get our foods from the beaches, but around here right now, the clams need to be depurated. And then we want to use our resources and our investments, our monies we make into cleaning up these beaches to make sure they're going to be healthy in years to come.
Chief, and how this project generates jobs for people of your community?
People in our community can become partners in this. They can learn how to become oyster farmers. They can invest in it. They can invest in families, and we could see it as the Sauk Nation taking a lead role in this, but also our membership becoming somewhat of farmers themselves, individually, families, and be able to look at this of ways of hiring people from our nation to do this, and also hiring people from outside of our nation. So there's a lot of benefits here and a lot of measurables that we see are going to be positive, because there's a lot more than just the oysters.
Chief Gordon, you mentioned a lot of different products on the seafood market. What about salmon? What places of the world are you looking for in order to become more competitive? Because we see that here you have growing a cluster, but you will have also the opportunities with oysters, shrimp, salmon, and all that kind of seafood that generates a lot of investments and a lot of jobs for your community.
Well, we harvest salmon in our local territory, in our waters. We take it from the ocean. We do not have salmon farms. But we have our crab traps out here, our shrimp traps. We go and fish halibut and lingcod. But the salmon right now, with the spring salmon, the sockeye salmon, the coho, all of those fish that swim by, we respect the salmon. We only take what we need. But also there's a lot of people in our territory that are dependent on that salmon for economic development as tourism and bringing people out. Charter fishing is one example of a lot of people that come to this area. It's a very good place for fishing. And then also for us, we need the salmon is a main staple of our diets. It's been since time immemorial, and we need that food to keep our people healthy, and we depend on that.
What are the basic resources that you need for this kind of projects in order that the people around the world will take you as an example, and if they are looking to implement projects like this?
We need to invest in the environment, invest in the rivers and the streams, making sure the spawning grounds are healthy, make sure that when you're logging, you log correctly, make sure that if there's development and housing, it's done in a respectful way that takes care of the water. You look at any way we're doing things now, we have to be more careful. Thinking about the environment means looking at your vehicles. Like, we don't want oil in our water. We don't want any chemicals in our water. We want to have it fresh, and we want to have it so it's like that forever. And that is a lot of work. It's education.
Chief, how this project has been like a model of economical development for other First Nations in Canada?
Well, other First Nations, specifically along the west coast of Canada, along British Columbia, we have everything in common, and that is we are the salmon people. We've always lived on the water. We can always work together in that way. Going across Canada is different when you're dealing with seafoods, because the other ocean would be the Atlantic Ocean, or you'd be up in the Arctic. But still, First Nations all work together as one when it comes to taking care of the environment, and taking care of the environment is the key to success.
We're going to a cut commercial, but we'll be back soon with our program Investment and Development and our special interview with Chief Gordon Planes of First Nation Soak. We are back with our TV program Investment and Development and our special interview here in the Bay of Soak.
Blake, we are looking for these oysters, but you are an expert on this. Tell us, how did you become in oyster producers? Because we know that you are from England and you have been in many places around the world. And now you are giving your knowledge, your know-how to these people, indigenous people, that they are looking to do business for the benefits of the community.
I studied marine science in Plymouth University in England, and then I studied marine aquaculture in the Shetland Isles in between Scotland and Norway, and I specialised in oysters and came to North America then to do a project on them. So that's how I got started, and then I worked in oysters for about 5 years before moving to various other places in the world to do different species.
Chief Gordon, we see a lot of youth people here. How do you get involved, the youth people, the women, in economic development in projects like this? Because it's very important for the future of these generations.
Well, I think it's with the youth. They need to be able to have the visuals of seeing this. They could see it, how it began, and how it's going to progress. And then with our children and our involvement right now, we want to see that in the future years, they'll be able to take more of a role in this kind of technology, because we really truly believe the technology is always going to get better in the way of growing food.
Blake, what would be your recommendations for communities that are watching us right now so they can implement this type of projects nearby where they can have water, for example, maybe ocean shore, or maybe connection ocean shore with lakes?
It's important to pick a good partner. The South Nation works with CCAD Enterprises here, who recruited me to come and work on this project. And it's important to know them well, because when you're bringing in foreign investment, obviously there's usually a caveat that comes with that investment. And from my early involvement in this project, it was quite clear that CCAD and the nation have a good working relationship, and they've made sure that there's agreements in place that protect the First Nation and allow them to develop at their own pace and make sure that they call the shots within their own territory, so it doesn't become a corporate partner taking control of the vision of the project.
Chief Gordon, how do you do that mix with your First Nation? You're creating economical development, but also you're keeping alive your culture. How do you do that interesting mix?
We rely on the messages from our elders. We stay within our culture that's been here since time immemorial. And if we do things in a way that is very respectful of ourselves, our partners, the environment, and the oysters, and all living creatures, then we know we'll be all right. We are going in the right path. And that's the way we look at it here.
Blake, which places around the world we should be looking to these kind of projects? Because we see that this is like a cluster. Mm-hmm. The investments are coming, the creation of jobs, the technology, the people gets involved. But I am completely sure that in the near future, you will be expanding to different kind of projects related. But what places we have to take a look in order to get advantage and to know how to improve in this kind of projects?
Well, the beauty of aquaculture is that most places in the world, whether they're inland or by the sea or whichever kind of environment they have, there's nearly always a species that is suitable to be grown. And if we learn lessons from the past and choose the correct species and farm it responsibly, it can be done almost anywhere in the world without having too much environmental impact at all. Process.
Chief Gordon Plans, you were visiting Guatemala, you were in Chichicastenango sharing with the indigenous communities, and now your First Nation Souk is very important for the global network entrepreneur indigenous. You are very involved in this. What is your final message for these indigenous communities? How to get involved in business projects, how to understand the world in order to generate thousands and millions of jobs to bring them a better quality of life?
The word I would like to say is for us to put out that word around the world is respect. Respect for the environment, working together to doing things that are right for the environment, that is a light footprint, something that you look at 100-year vision, then you know the things that you will be doing, you'll be doing it right. And we're not here for just a quick economic development project. We want this to last forever. And if we were to look at it that way, then we're thinking about our children not born yet and making sure we have an environment for them that is going to be sustainable, and an environment that is going to be healthy, and something that our children can learn from, and then they can make it better.
Chief Gordon Plains, Mr. Blake Barton, thank you very much for being here with us in our TV program. And for all of you friends, we invite you also next week so you can see a very interesting program that we had today.
Cuando pienso en mi Guatemala, el más bello paraíso, tan grande en historia, tan lleno de vida, me siento